Hey everyone, it's Karnak, Star Wars Armada Explained. It's your buddy, it's your pal. Thanks for joining me. We're going to be looking at a super weapon upgrade for the Onager, the Superheavy Composite Beam Turbolasers, or as we like to call it, just Blue Beam, because the beams are blue, and the other one that comes with the Onager has a red beam. We call that one Red Beam. So the blue beam here, how do you know, equips the Onager? Bottom left-hand corner of the card. Next to the super weapon icon, you will see the Onager icon. Shows that that's where the upgrade card equips to. Faction specific for the Imperials, you'll see that next to its point cost, which is 7. So this card is a modification card, which is a subset rule of, you can't equip any other modification cards to this ship if you have this card equipped. Meaning you would be able to equip the Blue Beam and also equip something like Spinal Armaments if you're taking something like the Star Destroyer version of the Onager. So that's what modification means. So this gives you ignition medium. I'm not going to go over all of the ignition rules. I have a totally separate video that goes over all of that specifically. Go watch the ignition video. But this allows you to place your ignition token in medium range band rather than close, like is the standard. And the card says ignition, so this is only used on the ignition attack. Red critical. The defender suffers 1 damage. This occurs once for each red or blue critical icon in the pool. So this upgrade card essentially is giving you extra damages if you can resolve that critical effect in an ignition attack. So let's walk through it. So this card is typically best on the Onager class Star Destroyer version because it gets the red and blue dice in its ignition attack, while the test bed only has, red and black. So you actually get a better chance with the Star Destroyer variant. So we're going to say here that the Onager is able to place that ignition token, which is typically only placed after the end of its movement. And when you do place these tokens, even though you could place it within close or in close range as standard, this allows you to place it within medium. So this does not mean that you can move this token to be something like that. That's considered at medium. That's not within. The token has to be completely within medium. Now, an interesting caveat is that, again, it needs to be either within medium or within close. You cannot straddle that line in between either of them because that's at either of those distances. That's not within. So that's not allowed. It can either be within close or within medium. It's not a huge distinction to make, but there might be a situation where, that's technically correct. You can't straddle the line. So I just want to make sure I was being clear on that. So we're going to say that he's able to place that token at medium, and he's able to, there we go, he's at medium distance of this MC-80 Liberty. Okay, so it's at when you measure for the ignition attack, it's at extreme range. You're still measuring from ship to ship, but he is within the ignition arc. You can make the ignition attack. To determine what your die pool is, you then check the range from the token. He's at medium range, so I'll be able to use 3 red dice and 2 blue dice. Perfect. All right, so we've got that all figured out. Get rid of all these colors and things. We're going to draw our line of sight. Boom, we got it. There's no obstruction or anything like that. All right, let's throw our 3 red die, 2 blue die. Okay, so we see here we only got 1 critical symbol. But it is the red critical symbol that we need to be able to resolve this critical effect as long as that die doesn't get rerolled or removed, etc. When we do get to the resolve damage step. So ignition, red critical, we're in the resolve damage step. The attacker says, I have a red critical, I'm going to resolve this upgrade card. The defender suffers 1 damage. This occurs once for each red or blue critical icon in the pool. Now in this situation, there's only 1 critical symbol. So the defender would only suffer 1 damage. And that defender would be able to suffer that 1 damage to any hull zone of his choosing. He can't suffer it directly to hull, because again, you have to choose a hull zone for that damage to be suffered to. It's just like if you'd overlapped a debris obstacle. So you do suffer, for this instance, he's like, I'm being shot in the front. You know what? I'm going to suffer that 1 damage on my rear hull zone. And that is how that card resolves. Now, let's back this up. Let's say that he had rolled something like this. He had rolled all criticals for all of his dice, and he didn't add or modify or do anything else. Let's say he rolled 5 critical symbols. So how does this resolve? Well, in this situation, as it says here, you suffer 1 damage. It occurs once for each symbol, meaning that you suffer 5 damage in total, but it suffered 1 at a time, and the defender can choose where that damage is suffered on any of his hull zones 1 at a time. Meaning, for example, I'm going to suffer 1 damage on my rear hull zone. I'm going to suffer 1 damage on my left hull zone, 1 damage on my right. So that's 3 total. You know what? I'm going to suffer the 4th on my rear again, and I'm going to suffer the 5th on my front. And that is absolutely how this card is resolved. You don't suffer all of that damage, along with everything else, because that's still another 5 damage from the attack itself. Okay, so that we haven't even gotten to the attack. And this damage, because it is suffered 1 at a time, and because it is a critical effect, it's taking place before brace or anything like that. So this is just straight up 5 damage. You just have to take it. It cannot be canceled or reduced or removed unless specifically there's an upgrade card that says that it can negate this damage that's not specifically tied to the damage of the attack itself. So that's just kind of, there's a little bit of fuzzy wording there, but for the most part, this damage that's coming from the critical effect, it just kind of just depends on whether that's damage you can be blocked or not. And in most cases, it's not. You can only block damage from the actual attack itself. But if you have questions about that, leave comments. For the most part, it's really not ever going to come up. Okay, so you've taken the 5 damage from the critical effect. Now, boom, you still have 5 damage there. The Liberty, it probably braced, is going to redirect. But that's still, it's a lot of extra oomph firepower that can go into a target if you can roll these critical symbols, which the blue dice has 2, the red dice has 2. Bring along modifications, etc. Now, there are some upgrade cards that do affect whether if you can resolve this critical effect. Like, for example, if the Onager has the face-up damage card Targeted Disruption, you can't resolve critical effects, so you wouldn't be able to resolve the effect if you have that damage card on the Onager. If the Defender has an upgrade card, like, for example, Damage Control Officer, and they have a Contain, if they contain, the Damage Control Officer supercharges that effect, you can't resolve any critical effects on that target. Also, if the Defender, if it's an Imperial ship, if they've got Commander Geralt, when attacking that ship, you can't resolve any critical effects if he's face up. If he's discarded, you can, but if he's face up and in play, you can't resolve critical effects against that ship. So that is the blue beam. Very simple, very straightforward. It's just pretty much more pew pew on top of pew pew. I've seen a lot of people playing around with a lot of different builds for all these Onagers and everything. It's really exciting to see. I just wish we had tournaments to be able to go to see what is good or not. But that is blue beam. Of course, if you have any questions, if you find something that you think is wrong or incorrect, please be sure to point it out. Let me know. You guys are fantastic, and hey, catch you all next time.